Moving on to our last and final part, the creme de la creme of our entire webinar, where we have Mr. KK Jain, Dr. Rajalakshmi ji, Mr. Siddharth Mayur, and Shri DMR Panda ji, who would be taking forth a panel discussion. Uh, Good evening, sirs, and good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ashwini.
Good evening.
So, from an afternoon, we have now entered the evening part of our panel discussion. We had a global perspective on hydrogen from Ms. Gauri Singh, an in-depth presentation on hydrogen-based mobility by Neelkant Marathe, a very intuitive presentation on hydrogen and fuel cells by Shirish Garurji. And now on this panel, we can have a interactive discussion about all three perspectives and how India's economy may open up to hydrogen, and what kind of steps are required to be taken, what kind of steps are being taken. Would Rajalakshmi ji, you would like to start on this?
Yeah. Thank you very much for.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't introduced you all. My apologies again.
It's okay.
Kindly permit me to
Most
introduce.
of them may be knowing, so I think you're not necessary. Anyway, you go ahead. Yeah.
I will just go ahead and introduce each one of you, ma'am. So we have here Ms. Dr. N. Rajalakshmi ji. She is the senior scientist and team leader at the Center for Fuel Cell Technology, which is a part of ARCI. ARCI is one of India's leading
R&D
institutions of R&D institutions, and she has been kind and gracious enough to attend this webinar and speak with us. Mr. KK Jain ji is the executive director and head of Center for High Technologies, which is a division under the Ministry of Petroleum. Mr. Siddharth Mayur ji is the founder and CEO of H2E Systems. And Mr. DMR Panda ji is the general manager and the head of hydrogen division at NTPC. I welcome all four of you, sir, and I'm really thankful to you for coming on this platform and sparing your valuable time to speak with us. I will start with you, Dr. Rajalakshmi ji.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the global perspective and the mobility perspective of hydrogen that we have seen, how would you see India take the next steps towards unlocking the hydrogen economy?
Yeah. If you look at it, all of you are aware that most of the pollution is coming from the mobility sector. So that is one thing which we need to address it. Decarbonization is very, very important in the energy sector, especially with respect to mobility applications. However, the challenges are how are we going to supply the hydrogen in case you are going to go for hydrogen based fuel cell vehicles other than electric vehicles. So generally people say that you go for either decentralized power hydrogen production or centralized hydrogen production. The cost of capex and opex varies depending on what type of hydrogen production you are going to take. Forget about the production of hydrogen per kg. I'm talking about the capital cost and investment costs that are involved. Anyway, government will pay some funds to establish this facility. So it is better that you go for this type of decarbonization sector. And I really appreciate the NTPC and railways. Without looking at the cost factors and the challenges, everybody is asking so many questions about the cost. But without looking at the cost, the railways and this NTPC are really with brave, they are plunging into the hydrogen based vehicles, especially for bus and trains. That is very, very challenging. That should tell you how you are going to unlock the hydrogen economy in India.
With your statement, we can straight away ask Mr. Pandaji to shed some light on the kind of work that NTPC is doing on unlocking India's hydrogen economy. Sir, your voice is not audible, sir. Even though your mic
Is
is
it
on.
okay?
Yes, it is audible now.
Yes. So we were trying at two, three different fronts. So first of all, as ma'am rightly mentioned, we are trying to run hydrogen buses in Leh Ladakh and in Delhi Jaipur and Delhi Agra routes. Now, when you want to run buses, obviously we'll need hydrogen, and we want it to be exclusively on green hydrogen. So we'll be setting up the generation, storage, hydrogen filling stations. And at Ladakh, it would be a standalone solar farm coupled with a hydrogen generating station and that facility. And therefore, one of the person asked to one of the speakers whether it would be PEM or alkaline. Now, because I would like to answer that, because we really did spend some time at NTPC in understanding which one will fit better at Leh Ladakh and which would fit better at Delhi Jaipur. Now, because in Ladakh, this is a standalone solar system, and therefore, though hydrogen for hydrogen generation, we want it to be PEM, which works better when the input power is fluctuating from sunset, sunrise that way. That is one. At other places, we'll be opting for alkaline based because that will give me a guaranteed higher efficiency conversion. That is one. So this is about the electric buses. Now, other things we are trying to do, we are trying to set up pilot green methanol plants where we'll be extracting carbon dioxide from the flue gases from the power plants, mix it with hydrogen from green source, and make methanol. This we are trying at two places. One is at Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana. The other is at the Madhya Pradesh. Apart from this, we are trying to have catalyst which can fasten the process of conversion of hydrogen carbon dioxide into methanol. Now, these two we have progressed quite something. But apart from this, what we are trying to do to be one of the leading hydrogen supplier in India. And for that, whatever is required, we are trying to do that.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for that answer. Would Mr. Mayur, would you like to? You are the only industrialist on this panel, sir. So, would you like to share some comments as to the kind of work that the private sector is doing in developing the hydrogen economy in India?
Sure, Ashwini. Thank you. And thank you to all the panelists and all the attendees to this, I think the first Made in India fuel cell seminar, let me put it that way.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
I would take this to a different argument or a different discussion altogether. We have focus on mobility, which is good, which is a very romantic subject, which is something which is which we see, touch, and feel. Mobility amounts for 24% of the global emissions. We are leaving the 76% behind. Now, we have to, if you will look at the policy push in Europe, mobility stands at number 4 in the European policy push. Generation of green hydrogen is at number 1, and where Europe is going is to power to X. And I want to take this conversation to the discussion on power to X. And also discussion between PEM, alkaline, and other electrolyzer technologies. Power to X is generating e-fuels, so methanol, like what Pandaji mentioned, or e-kerosene, e-diesel, because you're not going to have all the vehicles convert into hydrogen tomorrow morning. It is a transition process. You still are going to have IC vehicles running. So decarbonization, the other word also is defuelization. We have to also start working towards defuelization. So we as a company, looking at it from a commercial or an industry perspective, I think what Shirish ji also mentioned in his presentation, that industry needs to come into India Glad to inform that industry is already in India. We have started manufacturing SOEC and SOFC stacks and electrolyzers in India. In my office right now, we are producing hydrogen. In my lab in Germany, we have produced kerosene, methanol, diesel, and other high value alcohols with SOEC technology. So, this is a very interesting technology. If you compare it with PEM or alkaline or even AEM, it is the most efficient in terms of technology, most robust, and in our opinion, most suitable for Indian conditions. So there are two streams. One is electrolyzer and one is waste. So there is so much of waste available in India. If I calculate even 20% of the waste that is available, we will have hydrogen, which we can also export to other countries. So we are proposing a different business model. We are proposing a model where we get into distributed hydrogen and power to X e-fuel production, so that every district, every city, every village will become energy independent in every sense of terms, whether it is mobility, whether it is living, whether it is industry, and then get focus onto the steel industry, get focus onto cement industry, which are the big consumers or the big guzzlers, and getting into oil and gas industry. So this whole transition has to happen in a very seamed manner, and that's how we will be able to usher in the hydrogen economy. And coming to your question on what the industry is doing, there is a lot happening in this country beneath the surface in a stealth mode. Like we, for example, we've been working on this for 10 years already now. We have a product in place today. What we have also done is we've developed vendors and ecosystem where even components will be manufactured in India. We are actually working with one of the ARCI labs in Hyderabad for one of the key components, which can enable the whole Make in India story in a very interesting manner. And then there are a lot of other companies who have tied up with companies either in Germany or USA, and they're bringing those products here. So there is a lot of momentum, there is a lot of movement, and fortunately, there is a lot of movement even on the side of the customer. So look at NTPC as an example, Indian Oil, R&D, exemplary amount of work both these organizations are doing, and especially for entrepreneurs like me, these are the big push that we need to bring a product to market, because there's always a chicken egg situation between whether the cost comes first or volumes come first. And you always say that cost come leke aao, volume aa jayega, volume leke aao, cost aa jayega, that kind of thing. But these are companies, even the CHT, OIDB, these are all institutions who are supporting new development, who are supporting market implementation of these technologies. And the way there is push from all these organizations, including the Niti Aayog, PMO, I believe we will be able to produce the cheapest electrolyzer in this country. We will be able to lead the world in terms of hydrogen as a subject, like what Prime Minister Modi has done with the International Solar Alliance. I always use this word that IHA, International Hydrogen Alliance, is something that the Honorable Prime Minister should take it up. And we have so much of potential. We have so much sun, so much wind, so much of waste available with us. Let us convert all of that into hydrogen. Let us convert all of that into e-fuels, so that we become energy independent. If we can reduce energy imports, I mean, that's the key idea behind whatever work that is happening and work that also we are doing.
That was really great, and that is exactly what the chicken and egg problem is. When we have lists of finance, and that is why I would like to direct my next question to Mr. KK Jain. It's his organization that controls the maximum finance to all sorts of research, and his ministry is going to be, his department is the lead department in terms of financing so much research across the spectrum in hydrogen development. And I would like to hear his thoughts on what he would like to say on the hydrogen economy and how to unlock it in India. Sir, your voice is unable to hear, sir.
Now it's okay?
It's yes, sir.
Yeah.
Now it's perfectly fine.
What I'm saying, so let us talk on the energy transition itself. As Siddharth was saying, the all kind of energy are going to exist in at least next 10 to 20 years. And what we feel that at present, what India is a net importer, with the kind of effort which are going through, the India should aspire to become the net energy exporter, I'll say. the current situation that 80 to 85% crude import, around 50% gas import, and around 25% coal import is taking place in India. Now, this everything can go, and if we convert everything and we can become the net exporter, and that should be our dream. And we should work, or rather, we are working based on the 7 drivers, which our Honorable Prime Minister also mentioned some time back, that we are having 7 pillars, 7 drivers. Accelerate gas-based economy, first thing. So 6% present to, we have to reach to around say 15% level. That's the target given by 2030. For that, lot of work is already going, particularly from MOPNG side, like Satat is one scheme where we are working on the compressed biogas, which will be injected along with the LNG systems later on. So means we will increase through that, and around 15 million metric ton per annum CBG gas is going to come in the market in the next 3 to 4 years. The gas network pipelines, which is at present around 17,000 kilometers, another 15,000 being added. So LNG can be brought say from one end in the country and can be pushed to the another end of the country. Second, the cleaner fuel, fossil fuel. Already now BS6 has come, lot of investment has gone, and now on the coal gasification, the work have started, and the lead has been taken by the Coal India Limited. But definitely I know, because ultimately it will get converted into the syngas, synthetic gas. So either to the petrochemicals or along with the natural gas, it will be injected into the system. So work are going on. Third one is the greater reliance on the domestic resources to drive the biofuel, which Siddharth was saying, lot of waste is available in the country. Waste at present is around, the surplus waste is around 170 million metric ton per annum is getting generated, which the aim is to convert either to the CBG or to the biofuel, which can be either the bioethanol or can be the biodiesel. So a lot of work is going on, and lot of incentives available, and lot of work is going on that direction. To the emerging fuel like hydrogen. So the work has been started in oil and gas industry in a massive way. And what I want to say, as has been told, that the CO2 emission primarily as per the ratio if we see, earlier the power industry used to give the maximum the CO2 emission was there. Now the thrust is there, and now renewable gas is coming. Renewable power is coming for that. Second one, which is around 34 to 35%. There hydrogen is also needed, but not the kind of hydrogen which is needed for the transport sector. There is a lot of difference. So if we talk industry like say fertilizer is a good quantity of hydrogen they are producing, but that is going as the reactant. So they need not to produce a 99.999% purity hydrogen. But if the hydrogen goes to the transport sector, the challenge lies here, how to produce 59 hydrogen. The refineries are having the natural advantage at present. They produce 99.9% purity hydrogen. The challenge lies how to convert this 999 to 59 hydrogen, which will involve the additional cost. So what I want to say is the MOPNG is having a natural advantage that they are having the required experience to produce hydrogen, to transport hydrogen, and to store the hydrogen, which at present, if we talk the fertilizer, if we talk any other industry, that kind of hydrogen production and storage is not. We feel that MOPNG will take a good lead to produce hydrogen, to do even the hydrogen seeding. They are ready now to do the hydrogen seeding in the market itself, that they can do along with their petrol pumps or other things. So this is the kind of what I'm saying, the readiness which is already there, or you can say the strength lies with the MOPNG. Now the work is also going on. See, at present around roughly around 350 crore worth rupees R&D projects are going on the hydrogen side. One, you must have heard recently the HCNG at the Rajghat that has been initiated, where the on site the hydrogen production is there. It is being injected along with the CNG, and the trials are being started at the Rajghat and around 50 buses. Another the good R&D that has been recently being taken by IOC, Indian Institute of Science, and one of the OEMs will be the partner. So it's a perfect institute, industry, and the OEMs combination. Around 300 crore rupees worth trial projects will start very soon. That will be doing multiple ways of hydrogen production. Then hydrogen storage research means the material research, how to store hydrogen in different ways, be it solid, liquid, or different forms, and the hydrogen transportation and the dispensing system. So with this, there will be a national level facility which will be created at Indian Oil R&D Center, where anyone who wants to say test their vehicles or want to do different kind of say trials, that kind of facility will be available at Indian Oil R&D centers. So the work is already on, and what I want to say is, whenever we should take this kind of work, we should take at the massive scale. We should talk the export kind of scenario so that economy of scale advantage can be taken and the cost can be reduced in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your great, rendering of how the economy can be opened. Now, a question that was asked previously some time ago by Mr. Roy Segev, who is from Ballard Power. His query was that green hydrogen will take some time to become competitive. So, in the meantime, would India promote fuel cells and hydrogen systems using gray and blue hydrogen in the for the purposes?
Exactly.
So, anyone can answer, sir. Mr. Siddharth Mayur, I think you have raised your hand. You can please go ahead.
I think in the Indian context, there are two kinds of applications we have. One is the stationary and one is the mobility applications. And also the mobility is the heavy duty mobility applications. So heavy duty mobility applications are just starting up, and it's going to take 3-4 years before they mature. But getting into actual stationary purposes, so there we are looking at HCNG, like KK Jain Saab mentioned. We are looking at bio CNG, which can be used in a fuel cell to convert that into high efficiency electricity, heat, and water. So there we are getting into industries like, again, getting into steel or cement. So decarbonizing is the key. We've tried up with even blue hydrogen or gray hydrogen. See, storage and transportation of hydrogen is still the biggest challenge the world is yet to solve. Just hydrogen on its own is, you can produce gray hydrogen, I think, even at $1 or maybe even less. But the storage and transportation is the big challenge. And that's why looking at different scenarios, what Pandaji also mentioned, Jain Saab mentioned, that getting into e-fuels. So you produce methanol or you produce ethanol, which are liquid, which are easy to carry. And they carry a lot of hydrogen. You look at ammonia. So it's, NH3, 3 atoms of hydrogen. And then you use that with the reformation technology.
Okay, I hope that's a very good answer for, and hope Mr. Roy would be satisfied. There is a question directly for Miss Rajalakshmi ji. Here we have Mr. Mayur talking about large scale projects and heavy industries. The question for you is, how do you see hydrogen powering the fuel cells commercializing for household and small projects?
I think from my experience, it is easier compared to transport applications, because you can easily transport the hydrogen in cylinders, and then like how you are doing the LPG cylinders to home, it can be done. And a small capacity is not going to be very difficult, and there is no weight and volume penalty for household applications. So I think it must be easier. Technically and technologically, it must be easier compared to transport applications.
Shall I add?
Okay, Mr. Pandaji has something to add.
Yeah.
Please, sir.
So this is what precisely we're trying to do at Ladakh.
Yeah.
Now, the question from Ballard. In response to that, I would say that wherever a grid is there, Now, to reinvest in everything may not be the right option for India. So, in Ladakh, what we are trying to do, there are remote villages where there is no reach of the grid, and how to give electricity to those people. So, one is that set up a small solar farm. After the sunset, whatever electricity we have collected, we will be generating hydrogen, and through that hydrogen, we'll be making power out of fuel cell. And that electricity will fire uh, the appliances in those households in the night time. That is number one. That is what we are trying to do at Ladakh. Now, in this response, this is not merely an academic answer. In Japan, what they have done significantly work on this front. So, what they did, they went ahead and ordered more than a lakh of household fuel cells and invited vendors, manufacturers who can offer at the lowest cost. And then they arranged those fuel cells and then created that network. So they defined a region where there won't be any grid. For those household fuel cells will be providing power, where the cost of electricity would be matching. So my response is what they have done in Japan. So very possible, as ma'am had said yes, and this is precisely what we are trying to do at Ladakh.
I will add a few more points for this also.
Yeah, ma'am.
This type of fuel cells, the Japanese use a reformer using the gray hydrogen. So it answers the previous question also. If you have the gray hydrogen, you have a small reformer also, and then you can go for it. So that's not an issue at all.
No, in Japan now what they've done is, sir, the number is 3 lakhs, not 1 lakh. So
Yeah,
it's a
but
massive,
it's a reformer based.
in Japan, they used natural gas.
Yeah.
Shitoto gas was the partner, and they took natural gas into every home, and then they reformed the natural gas into hydrogen at customer point.
Yeah, that's a
So,
question is whether you can go for gray hydrogen. Yes, it is possible.
yes, no, it is possible, but what the Japanese people did, and that's exactly what the Europeans are doing now. They have a project called PACE, PACE, in which Europe is implementing 25,000 systems in individual homes, mostly for space heating. And Pandaji, in Ladakh, that would be a major application, is space heating, because heating is a major problem, especially with the temperatures they have.
Yeah, that could be added advantage. Yeah.
We have another question, but this is with regard to especially storage. It says that the use of hydrogen is being explored in gaseous, liquid, and solid forms, and other mediums also, like green ammonia, which Mr. Mayur said. Is it possible to commercially use gaseous form of hydrogen in unexplored sectors? For example, backup powers, or in for microgrids, isolated microgrids. How Mr. Panda said that we are having a hydrogen development or hydrogen production station in Ladakh. Can we also try to use some, expanding on that? Can we use a microgrid system for, let's say, the army at some places, because the army completely relies on diesel, and if it is possible to use something like that for them? Mr. Jain, you could also share your input.
Yes, it is 100% possible. So once we have produced a hydrogen, and then if you are having that fuel cells are there, you can back convert to the power, and that can be given through the microgrid. Small grid can be to inject that power in the night. 100% possible.
Projects, lots of projects are being created now, or integrating hydrogen as one of the energy vector in the microgrid.
Right.
So it is possible. Yeah.
Ashwini, it is practically done. My office where I'm sitting right now is a microgrid running on fuel cell and hydrogen for the last 1 year. Perhaps the first and the only one in this country.
Yeah.
Well, that is a very brilliant thing to be doing, and I think you should share more about how you have set up this microgrid, because from
We are doing a hybrid. We are doing a solar, fuel cell, battery, and hydrogen hybrid. So I'm also using natural gas. I'm using solar whenever the sun is available, and then I'm using the fuel cell, and then with battery. So we've done a complete integrated thing. So we're running my facility, my office, and our mini production facility. All of that.
well, that yes, that is very, very good, and I think that can be something which can be emulated in a large scale, especially to power our islands. For example, the islands in Lakshadweep and
This Port Blair,
Andamans, they are relying
this
on
kind of
solar and
system
wind.
is already being thought of. At Port Blair,
Right, sir.
this system is already.
Port Blair. Also, I have the next question that we sort of can explore is the running of the railways on hydrogen fuel cell. We have a tender that was released by the Indian Railways seeking to electrify its Shimla Kalka route by hydrogen fuel cell. So, how do you think that can be taken forward and maybe explored on a large scale basis for dedicated freight corridors or something of that sort?
Highly confident people. Instead of sitting and asking many questions when the child cost will come down, how are you going to produce hydrogen? There are lots of ifs and buts. So it's a chicken egg problem. So unless you have a demand, people will not produce that. So I think these guys are really going far and taking it very confidently and going ahead. It should come.
They're trying to create demand irrespective of supply, so that once there is demand, supply will inevitably come.
Yes,
You
yes, yes, definitely.
In fact,
I'm very happy about that confidence level of these people.
so we are in touch with them, and we, like I mentioned, we want to be in this area as hydrogen supplier in
Okay.
India. So we wanted to network with them,
Mhm.
and what will make actually sense is if we are able to supply hydrogen at a reasonable price, that will be a great thing because Kalka Simla is a heritage track route
Yes, yeah.
and not only attract attention of the global community, but then to be a path-breaking initiative in India. We read about hydrogen trains running around the world, but this will be really great, and to choose this route particularly will be a great thing.
I think if I'm right, we'll be the third person if you run it because only France and Germany they are running. We'll
That
be
is
the third
correct.
person.
And
I think if
it
I'm
is a
right.
very well researched EOI document that Indian Railways has published. It was a pleasure to see a
Yes.
document coming out of government machinery. I mean, so well researched, so precise. So we've been working on that EOI. It's a very interesting project.
so the last date is 31st December. I hope
Yes.
you aren't forgetting that.
No, definitely we are on the job.
Mr. Jain, sir, would you have something to add as
Yeah,
to
because yes, sir, this is very much possible. Already, what ma'am has also said, Germany has taken the lead in this direction. I think more than 8 trains are already running on this SOFC fuel cells, and they have proven that these are even they are competing with other means. But they are running those trains those area where electrification is not there. Same is the case for this our Shimla Kalka route, where the electrification is not there, and diesel by that is cost economic compared to where the already the power is there. So there is no sense to run where the electrified line is there, but definitely makes sense where there is no power.
right? So railways, that means, is actually uh, going to see a sea change in the way it operates, and possibly, as Dr. Rajalakshmi ji said, that we need that demand. That demand may be coming from the railways in the first instance, and mobility would be obviously taken care of by the railways and the kind of people it already transports.
It will
So,
be
so
very
the,
difficult for small scale players like passenger vehicles to take it up because of the space and weight constraints. Only this big buses and trains only can prove the concept, and then the public can accept that. That is my opinion.
true.
Small scale
But,
players is very difficult to
yes,
because
but
mature
as
technology. It's
as
very
Mr. True, as Mr. Mayur put it, that mobility and transport only uh, gives out about 26-27% of the global emissions.
Yeah.
So can we not look at more applications on heavy industries such as steel and cement, where, or even the other heavy industries, where we can use hydrogen, and maybe not exclusively the fuel cell aspect of it, but the gas as such. So if there is a lot of production of the gas, I think other uses of the gas through either fuel cell or maybe other devices would be promoted also, if the
Yeah, yeah.
cost of gas comes.
Yamuna is looking into that. There are some low-hanging fruits are available in the country. So Yamuna is looking at it of how to capitalize those hydrogen for other applications like steel, fertilizer industry, etc. It is possible.
In industry, see, you can't force industry to run on that and making them run on losses. In industry, you can create demand only when the industry finds it either the economical or regulation. This industry cannot run on say any other field than the hydrogen. So what indirectly can be done, which the say few American or the European country have done, if you put the carbon, which is indirectly done in many countries around say $40 to $50 per ton of carbon dioxide emission. If you put that kind of carbon tax and make that regulation in India, the selected city like the kind of industrial cluster, there then the industry can trade off and whether it is better to switch over to hydrogen or to say CNG rather than running on say the carbon heavy fuel like say might be say coal or might be say diesel. So this can give you different incentives. So either you have to incentivize or penalize, kind of say like of say carbon tax, etc. India has adopted the concept of PAT, means perform, achieve, and trade, which is an incentive kind of thing. So using this kind of scenario, it will take a lot of time, but definitely after some time when the energy efficiency improves and comes to a level where it is very difficult to improve your energy efficiency, then the trade-off will come. But so far at present, if you just ask simply industry to switch over just to say that it will decarbonize things, it is not going to happen. So certain regulations are supposed to come.
It is also interesting, Jain Saab, steel industry in particular. On the operating side, even today, the whole story is very cost efficient. It is only on the capex side where the issue is, and with a lot of incentives and regulation and also localized manufacturing, this is happening. I was fortunate enough to visit a project that the Tata Steel is doing in Rotterdam. They're putting a 4 megawatt electrolyzer to produce hydrogen on site, which will be used for their oxidation process in the steel facility. So talking to them, they said they were more than convinced on the OPEX side. The CAPEX, of course, they got funding from EU and stuff, so it was workable. So similar opportunities in India. So, we spoke about oil and gas industry, the steel industry, but agriculture industry. I mean, one of the biggest beneficiaries of this whole process can be the agriculture industry. You have 18 crore cultivators who are farmers. So producing biogas on site and then using that in a fuel cell for 24/7 energy generation, that can free up the agriculture space, that can make the farmer energy independent, maybe convert a farm into a factory. So, these are things that are possible with this whole fuel cell and the whole hydrogen story that is emerging.
Even today, the PM said that now the farmers are going to become energy producers.
Of course. No, there is so much of. See, we have done a case study, sir. We have run our fuel cell hybrid system on 4 farms for 2 years: sugarcane, banana, and strawberry. Wonderful results. When they get access to 24/7 power, productivity goes up. We were able to save 20,000 liters of water per acre on sugarcane per month.
Yes,
which is phenomenal.
Which is a huge that would be doubly beneficial to India, considering we already have a Namami Gange and a Har Ghar Nal Se Jal Yojana. So saving water would be it is the next fuel, and the next gold, I say, that having clean drinking water available at every household would be a very big achievement for India. And I'm glad that hydrogen can get India to that point also by saving a lot of water in from our farms and villages. Also, I would like to put this a small question with regard to just the storage. You know, we were talking about hydrogen use, hydrogen application, how things are going forward. But recently, I had a word with a professor from Indian Institute of Technology, Ropar, Dr. Dheeraj Mahajanji, and his views as to the storage of hydrogen. He said that India does not have the sufficient technology to store hydrogen in a convenient form. So, in terms of the cylinder that he was speaking about, Type 4 cylinders, he said that the research is going on. Type 3 is still very cumbersome and bulky. So, if we are looking at all this, how is storage being addressed?
See, hydrogen in a industry is not a difficult task because refineries are storing. It is the issue is if the hydrogen is to be carried in the vehicle, the issue lies there. Okay, because the hydrogen density is very low. So the means per 1 kg, if you want to store, you require a big space to store, or you have to compress it. So hydrogen can be stored either at 350 kg or at 700 kg. So if you are storing hydrogen at such a high pressure, the thickness increases so high, the weight becomes very high. So that is, the issue is how to reduce the weight. So one way is okay, develop some synthetic or polymer kind of material. That's where the research is going on, or convert that hydrogen into some solid form, so that in solid form it can be stored, and then once it is whenever it is required, the hydrogen can be liberated. So that's the different research is going on. Further, I think Siddharth or Madam can throw more light on this subject.
Yeah, with respect to hydrogen storage, conventional red cylinders, what you see in the laboratory, can store up to 150 bar, and it can store only 500 grams, which will carry about 75 kilogram of the dead weight. If you go for this 700 bar cylinders, it can store about 5 kg with 20 to 25 kg. So the dead weight is only 25 kg, but you can carry 5 kg, which will go about 500 kilometers. A thumb rule is 1 kg of hydrogen will give me 100 kilometers. It's a thumb rule. So when you want to go for long range and all, so that is a better option. And throughout the world, only 3 or 4 companies are working on this type of high pressure cylinders. And once when you start importing 1 or 2 cylinders from the international market, then automatically our researchers are capable enough to do this type of. In fact, one Dr. Swati from IIT Kharagpur and Dheeraj Magajan, they are all working on that. And one important thing what India lacking is, even if you develop 700 bar cylinders, we don't have the testing facility whether this will work at 700 bar or not. We have to give it to Sweden or Norway to test it, which is really a trouble for us. And the other aspect is, even if you make a 700 bar, okay, you tested the cylinder at Norway or Sweden, fine. But after coming here, the government does not have the permission to go beyond 200 bar. The PISO has to give the certification also, which is also missing at the moment.
No, very rightly said, madam, in terms of the certification. We are still in the archaic phase as far as the PESO approvals are concerned. You know, you always dread getting a PESO approval. But I want to throw light on another development. There is a lot of work happening on metal hydride cylinders. So where you can look at a 200 bar pressure storage, and there a lot of issues in terms of the pressure, the upping, the compressors, etc., goes out. So there is work that Swati ji and Dheeraj ji also at IIT Ropar, they're doing some very interesting work. IOCL R&D at Faridabad also is doing some great work on this side. But I think the greater issue is funding for such ideas. Because if you look at European countries, or if you look at Canada or United States, the funding available is very large. So if you look at a typical project, it goes about 3 to 4 million US dollars. which in India, of course, we have limited resources as compared to these countries. But if you have to develop these indigenously, then we need those resources, and we need that kind of free hand to work.
I
But
think all the ministries are supporting this type of work. I'm
very
not.
much, very much.
Funding is not an issue. I don't think so.
Funding is not an issue. Funding is not an issue because I myself have sat in few committees and few projects have been to this Dheeraj, Swati, etc. And Swati is working with IOCL with a high funding value only. But some infrastructure requirement is there needed. For
No,
that,
exactly. That's what I meant in terms of funding. Funding definitely is available, but the kind of infrastructure that they developed in the West, and of course they did it over the last 20, 25 years. A
Yeah.
lot of money has gone in. I mean, I think about 100 billion US dollars have gone into that process.
I
So
think
it
now
is
that is the right
for us
time
to
to
use.
put across to the government what you want. I think they will take it up.
No, it is now interesting to take all these technologies, bring them to India, indigenize them, and then get working. I think from the government, all we need is for PESO to become a little more quick in terms of their approval process. Otherwise, I think the ecosystem is there. There is support from every side or every angle.
This was very interesting to see how government and private sector are trying to get together in a and go forward in this case. Mr. Panda, there is one very specific question with regard to the Leh Ladakh project. And what it asks is, are you looking at exploring geothermal energy for producing hydrogen in Ladakh?
Not right now. That's a great opportunity, and NHPC has, I understand, ONGC, NHPC, they have already tried that. But if it makes sense for people of Ladakh, obviously that will be a great worth trying, and NTPC would do everything to make it possible.
I would like to know your final, I think this has gone for some quite a while, and you are also, this is a Friday weekend, or to bus, I think time to sort of wrap up and go back home again. For me, though, I'm already at home, so it doesn't really make sense. Fridays or no Fridays, it's all, back.
Ashwini, in the hydrogen world, we don't sleep, we don't celebrate weekends. We are here to work and bring the technology to market.
Sir, but that's true. That's exactly how the technology will progress when the
We breathe
weekends are.
hydrogen. We breathe hydrogen, not oxygen.
That's the right thing.
That's good.
That's true. That's true, sir. So, any last thoughts on the topic, sir, so that we can then sort of wrap up the webinar, because I am really happy to see that.
See, one thing which I would like to say, like this, all the refineries are having excess hydrogen capacity available. The issue is only, see, the question comes chicken and egg kind of thing, whether the hydrogen is available or the fuel cell buses are available. So that's what I am pressing my all refineries, that you start doing the seeding of hydrogen in the market, so that other side of work can start on a commercial basis. Side by side, the refineries are also working on the carbon capture and utilization. So if they are successful in that, then it becomes from gray to blue hydrogen, which is readily, we can say, it can be made available. Because there is a cycle, the CO2 which is generated from this reformer can be injected into the well. So that's what our northeast refineries have already started. Means carbon capture and supplying to the oil fields. So they are injecting it. And so hydrogen is already available in the northeast sector. Similar thing, we are targeting it to Gujarat refinery to produce grey hydrogen and to run the buses to that Sardar Patel, that Smarak. No? So that hydrogen buses, that's what is the plan Indian Oil is making.
That is very good, sir, to see that tourism is also being boosted
Yes.
by using of hydrogen. So, Mr. Panda, would you have any last words for us on this?
I really wonder, and it is not the last word. In fact, I wanted to start with this. Now, say when iPhones were introduced, no matter what the cost is, everybody wanted to be seen with an iPhone Apple product. That is at one extreme. The other extreme is when Indian government enforced Bharat Stage 6 all refineries, they have to change the processing thing. Manufacturers has to invest a lot to make it ready, which means the product has to be as attractive, so attractive that people would go. And at the same time, we need some enabler thing from the government. So maybe the government has to look at that if they can earmark certain percentage of steel or fertilizer or ammonia or mobility has to be on the hydrogen at one side. The other side is we have to make it very attractive so that people want it to be seen in one FCEV, either the bus or the car. So then probably the hydrogen economy will be speeded up in India. We must not look at 100% support from government, not even 100% from the private. That is why I gave the example of Apple. So we need something in between.
Mr. Mayur, you would have some comments to share on that?
Sure. No, this has been very interesting, and the way things are moving ahead, we are very seriously looking at making these products in India, making them very inexpensive to begin with, and look at specific industries. So even the government, when we speak to the government, we request them to look at specific industries. Let us target some industries, and make them completely carbon neutral or net zero, and then move to other areas, because India is a vast country. There are too many issues and there are too many opportunities that come with those. Like the one that Pandaji mentioned in Leh and Ladakh, which is, I think, one of the most challenging and most interesting opportunities. And I would end with saying that, of course, the Honorable Prime Minister has given the call for Atmanirbhar Bharat. But we as a company, H2E, my company, we started in 2011 with the slogan of Swadeshi Urja for a Swavlambi Bharat. So that's what we've been working on, and very committed. And I'm sure we will get a lot of help from fellow panelists here. They are all experts in the industry, belonging to different areas of the government or PSUs, and also the government at large and the end customers, to whom we will give a lot of value.
Sure, definitely. Dr. Rajalakshmi ji, you started this panel. So
one final word is India is a neutral country with respect to hydrogen. There was one report by METI says that we are not either less or more. We have a neutral country. So whatever demand we have with respect to hydrogen supply, we have. For example, you have a lot of hydrogen available at the Gujarat area, and it can be transported to other areas of India. So we are neutral country. We have enough potential for hydrogen. So we don't have to depend on the foreign country. We only have to tap it. We have to utilize it effectively. That is what we are supposed to do it. So with that, we can unlock the hydrogen economy in India. That's my final point.
I am very grateful to you and to all the panelists, Mr. Jain, Dr. Rajalakshmi ji, Mr. Mayur, Mr. Panda ji. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for speaking with us on this panel and attending this webinar. We are most grateful and deeply obliged. I just want to say that this is the first webinar that I have ever done. As an advocate and as an environmental advocate earlier, switching into now actually taking measures, taking action. Abhi tak what we were doing was we were saying the government ye nahi karta, government wo nahi karta, and go to courts and say nobody is doing action. And now to suddenly change on the other side and start taking these small little things and to try to see how things can actually go forward rather than to question everybody but to take action. I think it's a very, very different experience, and I'm very, very delighted and most grateful to all of you to actually be here and support us on this small journey that we have just started. We started on the 1st of July, and today we are doing our first webinar also. We now hope that India will soon come out with a hydrogen strategy so that we can even have something more to talk about. And really thank you to all of you, and really grateful. I am very grateful that even our audience has been there. Obviously now they have reduced over the course of 3 hours. They have reduced substantially, but at one point we had almost touched 100. Overall, we have had more than 200 people who have come for this webinar. but live at any given point has not really been very high. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
Thank you
again.
very much
Any
for
flaws
this.
that I may have had, any things that may have gone wrong in terms of the emails and the communications, I am deeply apologetic for that. It's completely my fault. And if there was any difficulty in the communication, also that's also completely my fault. I take full responsibility for it. Thank you
Thank you.
once again. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashwin. It was very well
Thank you.
organized.
Well organized.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And a very, very thank you to our audience for being here. Uh, I would like to end this webinar by saying thank you so much for sparing your valuable time and coming here and attending this webinar. And I hope that we have taken some really informative things from here in this webinar, and we can go forward and maybe work on it. And I'm really grateful to all of you, the panelists and the attendees. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.